Hey Nooba, welcome back to the Noob Spearo Podcast. It's Shrek here, the host of these amazing interviews with spearfishing experts, authorities and characters from around the world. It's fantastic to have you back. If you're here for the very first time, then welcome along. This is the show where we just froth on all things spearfishing, mostly and predominantly freedive spearfishing. Today's story is with Addrianna Reitenbach. I know I've butchered her name and I apologise, Addrianna. Eric Anderson introduced me to her. He says, wanted to connect you with Addrianna, who is spearheading the up-and-coming dive community SoCal Dive Babes. On Instagram, it's at SoCal Dive Babes. This group is all about building a solid dive community and providing mentorship to women divers who want to get into spearfishing. We've been chatting a bit on spearing and watching their trips to Baja and local waters, fundraisers, beach events, underwater pumpkin, target shooting, hanging out with Julie Riffe. He says, I thought it would make a great interview. Always stoked to hear more stories from the spearing community, and this one sounds like a good one. I agree with him. Addrianna was, she's very energetic, and she's very stoked about spearing, and this initiative is really cool. So if you want to follow along, at SoCal Dive Babes on Instagram. I do have some more shout-outs I want to get into, some massive ones actually. I got 3 for you. Palapis Ventana Spearfishing Champion. It's a Blue Water World Cup. It's being held this year, June 22nd to 26th, and you need to get in and guarantee a spot. This is a comp that is very well regarded around the world. Check it out at palapisventana.com. Amazing, amazing spearfishing comp. I could not encourage you to check that out more. 99 tips to get better at spearfishing on Audible. I've uncovered a few more fantastic reviews. If you want to get that for free, go to noobspearo.com/audible. That's AUDIBLE. If you like audio podcasts, you're probably going to like audio books. This is just the 99 tips to get better at spearfishing audiobook. Anyway, Anonymous gave us 5 stars. Great guide to spearfishing. I wish I knew these tips when starting out. Great refresher and love to support the guys. Well done. Great product. Great podcast. Another anonymous review says, bloody awesome. Awesome book to help anyone from novice to advanced with spearfishing. Keep up the good work, you guys. And then another anonymous review said, top effort, guys. This book has changed the way I look at spearfishing and myself in the ocean. Thanks, guys. If this book helps save one person or prevent any injury, and I'm sure it will help countless noobs, then it's worth its weight in gold. Thanks for those reviews, guys, and I hope you enjoy 99 tips to get better at spearfishing on Audible. Find it at noobspearo.com/audible. Also, William Forbes. I know William from the Brisbane Bull Sharks there. I met him. He's a fantastic guy. I believe he's studying a PhD. He really wants you to get involved in some evidence-based research about breathing techniques to improve breath hold performance, basically. So anyway, he says, I'm conducting a clinical trial for my thesis to further advance the knowledge basis of breathing techniques that may improve breath hold performance in divers. I'm recruiting participants for my upcoming online land-based study, of which you can be involved by participating to better inform us about how to train according to the best available evidence. You need to email him. So it's w.forbes, Forbes.10 at student.scu.edu.au. Email William Forbes, w.forbes.10 at student.scu.edu.au. I will have William's email in today's show notes. If you go to noobspearo.com/SoCal Dive Babes. I'll have William's email in there. Really encourage you to get involved in that. It's going to be a cool bit of research. But for now, let's get in and chat with Addrianna. I'm excited about SoCal Dive Babes. She brings the stoke and brings the froth. There's some mad tips in here, particularly if you're a female diver. Let's get into it. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is proudly brought to you in partnership with Addrianna Spearfishing Supplies. For your next piece of spearfishing equipment, head to addrianna.com.au. Flat rate shipping, Australia-wide, huge range of gear. Save $20 on every purchase over $200 when you use the code Noob Spearo. Better yet, drop into their Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne or Perth mega stores. Use the code Noob Spearo to save online or in store. Check it out, addrianna.com.au. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by Neptonics.com. For US divers, Neptonics is the one-stop shop for all of your spearfishing essentials. They got free shipping on every order over $99. Now you can use the Noob10 code to save 10% off anything and everything store-wide. 10% off store-wide. Use the code Noob10 at Neptonics.com. Boom! All right. G'day, Noob Sparrow community. Welcome to the show. We're in for a treat today. I've got Addrianna, I think I'm butchering her name correctly, the SoCal Babes dive founder. I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Addrianna.
Thank you. Hi.
Tell us a little bit about who you are. Like, how old are you? How long have you been spearfishing? And where do you live and breathe and do this SoCal Dive Babes crazy thing that you've started?
Cool. So I live in Los Angeles. I've only been here 2.5 years. So I dive Southern California, which includes the coast, the islands. So Catalina, Santa Cruz, Anacapa, Santa Rosa, and then Baja, which is really amazing. So I've done the Pacific side and the Sea of Cortez side of Baja, which I love diving. And I have literally only been spearfishing for a year. But when I got into it, when I set my mind to it, I was like, I'm going to build this awesome women's community for spearfishers. And it kind of happened. So here I am.
And it's cutting some new paths, and it's going off by the sounds of it.
It really is, yeah.
Well, it's awesome to have you on the show, Addrianna. And so you started a year ago. What made you decide freedive spearfishing's for me?
Okay, so I started scuba diving in 2008. So I've scubaed all over the world. I have like 500 dives, and I've done it, and I loved it. And I did it with my my ex-partner. And when that relationship ended, I decided to move to LA and start something new. And so I needed like a new sport, a new community, just like a new thing. I wanted the ocean. And I came to LA and I only knew one person. So I was like, okay, I need something that is going to introduce me to people and be in the ocean. And really randomly, I was living with a vegan. And she went to Florida, went on a boat, and she saw some girls like pole spearing in bikinis. So like that whole like sexy, fun, like look. And she came back and she's like, oh my God, I want to spearfish. Do you want to learn with me? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe I do. And so we stayed up all night and we just went down this rabbit hole of spearfishing videos on YouTube. And she went to bed and I stayed up and I dug deeper and deeper and deeper. And something clicked for me and I went to bed and like a seed was planted and I woke up and I was like, this whole forest bloomed in my mind. I was like, oh my God, like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. Like, I want to spearfish. I want to free dive and I'm going to build. So funny. I was like, I'm going to build LA's first and biggest and only like women's spearfishing community. And I was like, I'm going to call it a spear to spear. And it's going to be like if Coachella and yoga had a baby with spearfishing. And I had this like whole ridiculous vision, right? Because I knew nothing. I didn't know anyone that spearfished. I didn't know there were clubs already. I didn't know anything about the culture. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to be like Avatar. We're going to like meditate before we go in the water and we're going to like shoot fish. And then we're going to like pray over their souls. And we're like, it was so ridiculous. So I wrote this manifesto. I was like, this is what it's my vision board. And I sent it to every single freedive instructor in Southern California that I could find, this whole Spear to Spear manifesto. And only one of them actually responded with, girl, I love it. He was just like, yes, this is exactly what we need. Like, I love your enthusiasm and your energy. I got daughters. Like, let's do it. Come to my class. I was like, yes. So I went to his class and it took me 5 hours to pass. And I didn't know it at the time, but like normally, like in an FII level 1 on your ocean day, like it's like a 2-hour thing, you know, and if you don't make it to 66 feet, then you got to like reschedule. But for whatever reason, my instructor was like, I am not giving up on you. You're not giving up on you. I'm not giving up on you. That was like our conversation. And I was like, okay. And I like 5 hours later, because I was struggling with equalization, I made it. And then that was kind of that was the beginning.
Wow, that's sick.
I know.
So what in particular were you having trouble with the equalizing? Was it, were you I guess because scuba diving, you had the feet first kind of equalizing thing going on.
Yeah. So the head down was different. And I had moving to LA was a different climate. So I had a lot of chronic sinusitis. So I was struggling with like sinusitis and I think I would make it like 20 feet and then everything would lock up. Right. So I spent a lot of this year taking EQ classes, training. I had that little like octopus balloon, that I play with, like, right, to open up everything.
Does it work?
I think so. I mean, it's a lot of things, I have this attitude of like, I want to do everything that I can on my side before a dive to make sure that it goes well. So if something goes wrong, it's not for a lack of something I did. So right? I take the Dramamine and the Sudafed and I do the octopus thing and I breathe and I relax and I meditate. I do like all the things, right? It's a little overkill probably, but I do it.
So it sounds like you're really determined, definitely a self-starter, and you just have a crack at things. Like,
Kind
I want
of.
to, we'll come back to this. I think it's going to be a theme maybe for your interview. Like, with the equal, like, let's get granular for a second. With the equalizing, what do you
Sure.
think have been the biggest wins to allowing you to equalize successfully and get down to 60 feet?
Diet, in my opinion. So I haven't done, like a deep, data analysis of all the things I do, but I would say making sure I stay hydrated and cutting out dairy. Like free diving is so good for so many reasons, but it's changed just my day-to-day routine.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the weather, right? Like the weather is like you're waiting for that weather window. You can't really plan a dive too far in advance. So I'm always making sure like I'm ready to get in the ocean. So I've like cut out a lot of alcohol, and I quit dairy pretty much entirely. And I do, oh, that's so crazy. But I literally will neti pot every morning and night. So it's hard to say what exactly I do, but
Mm.
it's a combination of things that I do.
That'd
Yeah,
make a real
to make
good
it work.
Instagram post, just the before and after nutty pot, I
You
think.
think?
Maybe not.
Like in slow mo of the snot, just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
coming
yeah.
out of
Just
like one
like
side.
sometimes, like with Instagram, you see the girls in the bikinis and stuff, and then when you actually go spearfishing, you're like, oh, like you've got to find weird places to take a shit.
I
There's
know, right?
snot and blood in your mask sometimes. Like,
I
no
know.
one talks about this sort of stuff. Tell me about your journey with the yucca
No.
stuff.
Okay, you know what's funny that you said that? So I was supposed to go on my very first trip to Baja with the club that I belong to, but they canceled it because of COVID and the border and everything. But I had heard that some of the people from the club were still going, but I didn't get invited. So I was like super left out, and I was so bummed. So I'm
Mm,
in our local dive shop, and I'm talking about, I was like, yeah, I was like so looking forward to it. Like I got the gear ready. Like I was prepping for months for this, my
mm,
first trip to Baja. I was like, yeah, but they canceled it. But a bunch of guys are still going, but like they didn't invite any of the girls. And this guy goes, fuck that. You're coming with me. I'm going to Baja for 10 days with my two best friends, and we have room for one. Like, you're coming with me. And I was like, done. And that's pretty much how I learned to spearfish is I just said yes to strangers.
yeah,
And then I ended up on boats, and then it worked out, like luckily.
100%.
Right? And so I went on this trip, and it was funny because all the guys on the trip were like, does she pee on the side of the road? And they were all like really nervous about that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, duh, I pee in a
Mm,
wetsuit, a sealed bag of my own urine for 6 hours. What makes you think
mm,
I'm not going to go like on side? So it's funny. There's a lot of that. I'm not very modest. I think if you know me, I'm not a very modest person. So that kind of stuff doesn't really
mm.
bother me. You poop in buckets on boats, you do what you have to do. And I think at the end of the day, it's just really bonding for the people, that are on the trip.
I'm going to talk a little bit about I got busted a while back. Last year, actually. I'll give you a story and what's encouraged me to get more women on the show. I've
Ah,
been hassled by a couple of people before, like, why don't you get more women on the show? And by young, talented female spearfishing women. And I said, well, to be honest, like I've had 5 or 6, and like I've done 150 interviews. Maybe the 5% of them have been women, and to be honest, I think that's probably an overrepresentation of the proportion of females in the sport. And then she didn't like that, and she gave me an earful. And I've started talking to more women that have tried spearfishing, and a couple of things clicked for me. Like when I was in New Zealand last year, I didn't know that this woman coming along with us was a Spearo, and I said to her, "Oh, are you? Do you spearfish?" And then she was like, I really offended her, and she turned
huh,
out to be a bloody awesome diver. Like she's better than me,
yeah.
and what I realized was what I've been realizing is that not every woman has got the personality where they'll go out with a bunch of guys that they don't know, and
Mm,
then like
mm-hmm,
piss in their wetsuit, piss on the side of the road, deal
mm-hmm,
with all the snot and the yuck stuff, and then you've got to
mm-hmm.
hunt. And there's just not many girls that do it, and there's not many networks of women that do it. And like a lot of guys look at the women stuff, and we're like, I think we sort of go, well, we don't. Our spearfishing clubs aren't guys only, but
Uh-huh.
but it's like just due to the nature of it that there's just a
Hmm.
heavy male gender skew, and so we're not intentionally created barriers to women spearfishing, but I think they're just kind of there. Like anyway,
Hmm.
so I want to start having more people on the show, and especially people like you that are starting these communities for females, because I don't know, it seems like a completely different experience. Like, I did the same thing as you. I went out with random people. I took the opportunity.
Yeah.
I took the bull by the horns, went out with strangers and went spearfishing for the day, and that was pretty much how I learned. And because
Yes.
it's a really tiny sport, only a really small amount of people do it, the chances that one of your friends or relatives do it is slim. So you're probably going to go out with strangers, and if they're not, like if I was a girl, I don't know, that journey would have been crazy. Like, particularly if I didn't have a real outgoing personality like you do. Or maybe you do, or maybe you don't. That's just my assumption based on chatting with you for 10 minutes.
I do. You got that right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of my story. But as you're sort of talking through some of your stuff, I'm now able to understand that experience a little bit more from maybe your perspective. So anyway, I'm not woke. I'm not any like I haven't all of a sudden turned a new leaf. I've just developed a sense of empathy and understanding, I think, for some of the younger women that are entering the sport. So anyway, so that's something that's happened to me in the last year.
That's cool. I want to comment on that. So when I got into the sport, I was told by everyone, all men, there's not enough women in the sport, or there's no women in this sport. They would name like 3 common names, or they'd say Valentine Thomas, Kimmy Werner, and Kelsey Albert. And as far as I knew when I first started, those were the only women in the entire world that spearfished. And what I've found is, I mean, how is it that I have gathered up 70 women in less than a year that either are already spearfishing, have tried it, or who want to do it? And so that reality has challenged that belief. So I've had to really ask myself, okay, so what is it about SoCal Dive Babes that has made us successful and has drawn out all these women? And I don't actually think that there aren't women who are into the sports. I think in a way that we've been told that story, that there's this whole like, there aren't any women who are into it, or there's just so few women are into it, or they're only into it if their boyfriend is into it, or if their father is into it. And that's not actually the case, but that is so perpetuated that it ends up isolating us. Yeah. And so we're not looking for each other. We're not seeking each other out. There's that one-off photo on Instagram that you see, like, just randomly on a hashtag, right? And you're like, oh, who's that person? Oh, they're in Australia. Okay, never mind. And so it's ended up that story has, I think, isolated women in the sport, at least in Southern California. And then has forced us into like the clubs, right? Which I have nothing against clubs. I love them. I love the diversity. Every club has something great to offer. But it's isolated us into these clubs, which have very long-term established cultures that are male dominated. And I have found in doing SoCal Dive Babes, this sort of territorial nature around the clubs and women that's really kind of like blows my mind. I've been accused by clubs of stealing their women. And I'm like, first of all, SoCal Dive Babes, we don't call ourselves a club. We call ourselves a collective. And 40% of our members belong to other clubs. And I love that. We have members of like 5 different clubs. And I just think that's fabulous, right? The more diversity, the more variety, the richer of a community we are. Yeah. Right? And so now that we've sort of found each other and we've all kind of come together under the umbrella of SoCal Dive Babes, we don't have to play by the rules of the clubs or the rules of the guys anymore. And we get to define the sport for ourselves, and we get to add our own energy, our own personality to it. And I think that is what makes us so successful. And I always say, SoCal Dive Babes is first and foremost a women's community. It is second, a free dive and spearfishing group. And our motto that I wrote is, it's friendship above the water, mentorship underwater. And I put it in that order intentionally. And so in my mind, my background is all around building like teams and companies and cultures and startups. And all I have to do is to create the right conditions for women in this sport to thrive, and they 100%. Will. Right, 100%. Yep, right, 100%. And so everything I do, so being new to the sport and having joined clubs and like been to different events, I'm like, oh my God, given if I just follow what's out there, I am never going to learn. I'm never going to learn. And I felt I was so disheartened so many times in that first 6 months. I almost quit. Quit a couple times. And it wasn't until I found this like random captain who is so awesome, who is willing to take me out. And he's still to this day the only captain that I have met that will take newbies out and actually literally spend time in the water with them, letting them, struggle and figure it out on their own. And, so I'm really lucky that I found him. But yeah. So there's that.
That's awesome. I guess one of the other mindsets that I sort of had around the gender skew in spearfishing was that it was a kind of a natural distinction. Like, I thought, the women that spearfish, good, great for them. Like 100%, I don't care if you're a girl or a guy when you come out spearfishing with me. Just as long as you enjoy it and you're a good part of the team, all good. But the other thing the sort of idea I had when I thought of the gender skew was because, I think traditionally, we've thought of men as more of the hunters and collectors and it being a really sort of a particular way of sort of, I don't know, just the way we approach the world and things in life. Because I remember when I scuba dived, I straight away wanted to start catching stuff. Like I wasn't, like looking at stuff was kind of secondary for me, you know what I mean? I thought that was another part of why there was such a heavy gender skew. But I think we're going to see the numbers shift. I think we're going to see a much greater proportion of female divers, like coming in the next generation for sure.
Okay, you know what's crazy about that is when you think of hunting in for other animals, I don't think you leave women out. Like, women hunt deer, women hunt boar, women bow hunt, women shoot, they compete. But what is it about spearfishing, which is hunting, right? That the culture goes, oh yeah, no, women don't do this. Well, we already know, like, chicks dig water and they're into hunting, right? It's interesting. I'm like, where did that come from? I don't know, but I'm here to bust that myth open.
Love it.
We love
Good
it.
Stuff. Awesome. We're going to chat more about SoCal Dives and Veterans Vault and find out a little bit how it operates now and sort of what's going to be happening for the next few years and how people can get involved. I wanted to go back to your spearfishing sort of journey. So
yes.
You have been fortunate to encounter a few cool people along the way, it sounds, and those people make such a huge difference in the make or break of, like your spearfishing life. So tell us a little bit about some more of these these people that have come along and helped you with different struggles and stuff.
Oh my God. Yes, I love this. So I got my first gun January of 2020, right? So it's a year. And I think I did what I've come to find like anyone else does is like, you just go online, you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, and you start hitting people up. And so I was just DMing everyone I could find, like, hey, like, I'm Addrianna, like, I'm so stoked, look at my gun. I was like a photo of my gun. and I'd be like, look, I have all the gear, like, I'm dependable, you can count on me, I'll bring ice, I'll pay gas, I don't care what it is, like, let's do this.
Yeah, nice.
And no one would respond. And so I found this guy in Orange County, and I love this story. And he has, it's Spear with X, Peter Yee. He's great. And he has this, on his Instagram, it says something like, come into the ocean and dive with me. And I read that like a personal invitation to email him. And I was like, oh my God, hey, I have been looking for you. This is awesome. I would love to come into the ocean and dive with you. And he goes, have we met before? And I'm like, no, isn't this awesome? I just found you. Like, what are the odds? And he was looking for people to dive with. And he's like, why did you think I wanted to dive with people? I was like, well, your bio. He goes, oh, no. He's like, girl, slow your roll. Like that's my videos. Like I just post videos on that account. That's like, come into the ocean and dive with me. It's like a metaphor for watching my videos. So I was like, oh, so like, do you want to dive with me or do you not? Like, cause I'm cool if you want to do a video, I'll just like be there. He's like, yeah, no, like that's a no. He's like, but what I will do is I'll talk to you on the phone and you can ask me questions. I was like, done, I'm free. Here's my number. Let's go. He's like, oh, okay. So he called me. And so he was like my first, I guess you call it mentor. And he talked to me about like band stretch. So I was like, here's my gun. Like, what does it do? What does it mean? And so he taught me because it's a Riffe Euro 100 with a reel. And the guy that gave it to me put on like grandma bands. He was like, those are grandma bands. Those look like 32-inch bands. He's like, that gun should have 24-inch bands. So tomorrow I'd like you to go to Spear America and get like new bands. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he's talking about like band stretch, like how guns work, why you have a reel versus a float line, what a float is. Like, I mean, I knew nothing. Like I had this gun and I had the outfit because I love gear, right? So I was like suited up, right? I'm like that like new person, like first day of like kindergarten. I got like the lunch bag and I got the dress on and the cute shoes. Like I'm all ready to go, right?
All the gear and no idea.
And no clue, right? Totally
Yeah,
clueless, but like gung ho. And so I fixed the bands and, you know, figured it out, but like no one would take me. So finally I meet this guy actually at a scuba shop, David Ortiz. He goes by Respected Deck. He does charters. He's got this small little boat and a huge heart, and he goes out to the Channel Islands. And so I literally I got a lot of shit for being a boat diver. And people were like, why aren't you shore diving? Like, all newbies shore dive, like you're bougie. I'm like, you know what? I'm boat diving because he's the only one that will take me. So you can find all the reasons in the world you want to like talk shit on me, but if you're not willing to take me, I don't want to hear it. And so David took me out twice a week, and I paid a charter price. I didn't care. And oh God, and he literally taught me everything. And I shot my first halibut. I shot my all 3 white sea bass with him.
Wow.
I know. He taught me how to get uni, how to get scallops, what to do with it when you get it, like how to fillet fish. He didn't tell me, though, that you're not supposed to put fish in fresh water. So the first sheephead that I bought, I had this potluck for my gym. It was a really big deal. And I have been trying to like get women from the gym to join the sport. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go shoot a fish, and then I'm going to make it into ceviche, and I'm going to bring it to potluck, and you guys can all try it. Then you can come with me on the boat, right? But no one told me that you weren't supposed to wash it in fresh water. I'm making the ceviche, and it is like hella slimy. It is gelatinous. And I'm looking at it going, God, you know, this just doesn't look right. And I'm like, well, I'm like chopping it up. I'm doing the things. I got the lime and I got the mango and the things. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. But I bring it to the potluck anyways. I'm all like, hey guys.
Have some slow.
Have some ceviche. And they're all like, no. I just shot it. It's super fresh. Everyone had a stomachache that had the ceviche. I felt so bad. It was like people were in the bathroom like for a long amount of time. And people were like, maybe it needs more salt. And I was like, maybe. I don't know. And so I went home and I sent a photo of it to a friend of mine, and he was like, what the fuck did you do? And I was like, I don't know. I followed the directions that you sent me. He's like, Addrianna, it should not look like that. Did you actually serve that to people? I was like, yeah, and they ate it. He's like, did they like it? I'm like, no, they didn't. They did not like it. Not at all. They hated it, but they were too nice to tell me that, but I could see it on their faces. So, you know, it's like there's a lot of that my whole journey was like making a lot of mistakes and figuring it out on my own. And I think that's the best way to learn, you know? And like when I take girls out who are new, I have an Omer 75 that has like 3 wraps and no reel. And I recently took one of our new girls to Santa Barbara Island. And I was like, listen, I will not let you into the water until you can put this gun together on the boat. And so she sat there and I let her struggle with it, you know? But she was so proud, like that moment, because like the brain needs that, like to like build those neural pathways, right? You need to like 100%. Struggle with something, right? Okay, right. And in case she gets into a tough situation, like you need that stuff to be on autopilot. So I wouldn't let her get into the water until she could like do the gun. She shot a triggerfish and a sheephead in 20 minutes of getting into that water, and I was just like, that's my girl. And she shot her first fish, and she was like, I was still getting dressed on the boat. She's like, Addrianna, I shot a fish. It's massive. It's huge. Like, come. I'm like, oh, fuck. What the fuck did she shoot? Like, oh my God. She's like, it's like this big. And like her hands are like out to here. And I come, it's like a triggerfish, like the size of a dinner plate. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. I'm like, it's huge to you. I get it. It's huge to you. But there's like, it's just all those stories, you know, they keep me coming back.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've talked a little bit about it before, but there's that learning model, that unconscious incompetence. You know, you don't know what you don't know. Then there's that.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah, the conscious incompetence where you know that you don't know, and then there's conscious competence where you know what you've learned, and then there's unconscious competence. And so many Spearos and Spearers that are experienced, they've forgotten what they learned, and they've forgotten all that stuff. And we don't necessarily respect, you know, the learning process, and we don't allow people to just, you know, sometimes we just treat people like they're morons until, you know, and you experience it in every sort of sphere of life. But spearfishing, it's really clear sometimes, obviously, because this is the world we live and operate in. But allowing someone to struggle with something and then figure it out on their own, it's really rewarding. And then that lesson is learned forever, so
It
it's
is.
powerful.
And I think that's what was so special about David. So we would go out to the islands and he would put me in these conditions where it was super surgy, lots of kelp. And the first time I ever shot a fish, he's like, "You're gonna get some really big sheephead down here." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready." And I dove down and I shot a fish and I had I had no idea what I was doing. And the surge was super bad. I lost both of my knives. Like the reel was wrapped in kelp and it wasn't even a huge fish, And I come to the surface and I look at the boat he's like 15 feet away and he's looking at me. Like I'm looking at him, like thinking he's gonna jump in and help me. And he's just like looking at me with this like amused look on his face. And I kind of like throw my arms up in the air, like, "Are you gonna do anything?" And he just like shakes his head no. And he's like, and he goes, "You got this." And I was like, "Fuck, I do not got this." And I didn't have enough weight on. I had a 7 mil suit on. I didn't have enough weight on. I was like fighting. I mean, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah,
it was so unpleasant. I was like frustrated and I was angry. But you know what? When I finally got that fish out of the hole and I did all the things, I like swam to the boat with everything in a bundle. It was like, I was like covered in reel line and shooting line was everywhere. And I swam to the boat with the fish. I was so proud of myself just for the fact that not only did I shoot a fish, but I got everything. Like I didn't lose anything but knives to the boat. And he taught me how to like gut it, and so that's what I do with the girls. I'm like, I'm going to make sure you're safe. I got my eye on you. But you gotta have those experiences. You have to struggle to really learn and understand. And so yeah.
Awesome. So when you take out girls these days, what's your process? Like, what is the sort of the talk you give to them before? Because you can give people too much information too soon as well. So what are the kind of the bare basics that you give to them before you get them in the water?
So when we shore dive, when I go shore diving with the girls, it's never because I want to shoot fish. It's just to be in the water with them, watching over them. And so I do an assessment of like, where's everybody at? Who needs what? And then I just take the really, really new girls and I'm like, all we're going to do is just like shoot the gun into some kelp or shoot it into some seagrass, shoot it into nothing and just get the feel for it. What does it feel like to discharge your gun? Can you load it? Like, let's swim back. Oh, it's strong current. Let's swim backwards. Just those basics. Because we get girls who haven't even taken free dive training. So, or there's just all different levels.
Sure.
So, right. And
the freediving course is a $500 barrier to entry. And sometimes it's like, they just want to go out and have a look and have a go before they work out whether it's for them. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that I do is I always have gear that they can borrow, gear that they can try on, or I find it if I don't have it that will fit them. And I'm like, let's just get in the water. Let's see if you like it before you want to invest, right? We go somewhere super easy, super calm. And then once they kind of get it, they're like, yeah, you know what? I like this. I'm going to go invest some money. Then I'm like, all right, well, let's go on a boat and let's actually get you a fish, because once they shoot that first fish, they're hooked. Like, how can you not be, you're kind of hooked.
For sure. And you eat your own catch, and it's like if you prepare that thing, and you not only have you it's been a difficult experience getting to shoot the fish, but then the work that you've put in to put the meal on the table itself sort of creates a real sense of appreciation for it, even if it's
100%.
like a trash inverted commas fish.
Right.
So
I stay away from that. I don't buy into the whole trash fish thing. I don't.
I've been guilty of it, and I don't know. I got busted a little while again. I had a friend that he's not a great diver, and he just shoots. Well, some of us accused him of shooting everything that moves, but he just shoots some less desirable species. And instead of working on his freediving and his technique and relaxing and trying to get down and shoot good fish, sometimes it just seems he settles for shooting these inverted commas trash fish, and they're called wongs, and you can cook them wrong very easily, and they are terrible. But he cooked them for us, and we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. Well, we kind of did. We were like, oh no, it's wong, and then he served this fish, and we were like, holy shit, that's the best wong I've ever eaten in my entire life. Right? And changed my mind. If I'm feeling like cooking and doing the way he did it, then I will shoot them again. But as a rule, I don't shoot them. But they're sustainable. No one else shoots them because they think they're a trash fish. So it's weird.
Right.
What are your sort of your 4 or 5 species that you start out on where you are?
I love this. So it's funny because I've been told by people that I've dove with, they're like, Addrianna, usually new people, they just shoot whatever moves and whatever they can shoot. And I don't do that. For whatever reason, I was very aware in the beginning of like, if I'm gonna get any respect in this community, and if I'm gonna like start a women's group, I need to have impressive fish. And so one, I'm very ambitious and I'm sort of hard on myself, just like naturally. So I was like, okay, like if I'm going to go in the water, I need to get really good really quickly. So I was diving like 4 days a week, and I shot the reef fish at first, but once I was like, I'm going for halibut, white sea bass, and yellowtail. And like, I want to get all of those within the first 6 months of spearfishing. And I did. I know, I'm so proud of myself. I was like, oh my gosh. And I wanted to get a wahoo and a tuna, but it didn't work out. So it was close. I was close, but it didn't actually work out. So I was told that most people, their first year, they just shoot whatever they can shoot, and they shoot like barely legal fish. And then the second year, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to get better at diving. And then their third year, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go for a pelagic. And then their fourth year, they're like, okay, I'm going to go for tuna. And they're like, I don't know what it is about you, but you've sort of just kind of like just gone right to year 4. And so, that's what I did. I wanted to shoot things that I wanted to eat, and that I was like excited to like talk about and be like, oh my God, my mom's favorite fish is halibut. So I wanted to shoot a halibut for her to kind of get her on board, because she was not like stoked about me spearfishing. So I was like, Mom, I shot a halibut and it's 27 inches. It's my first one. And it's really impressive. It's a big deal. Like, this is yay. Right. And then I shot like a bunch of yellowtail, and like all my friends were like, oh my God, like that's what I order at the sushi restaurant. Yay. Right. And then just kind of worked out that way. But I would say my favorite fish to eat are hands down halibut, grouper, and wahoo. Okay. So I've shot grouper. Grouper you can do anything with. I love halibut, and I love yellowtail too. But like for me, it's like wahoo, grouper, and halibut, they're good both raw and cooked. Where for me, yellowtail is only good raw. Like sashimi or poke style, I wouldn't ever cook a yellowtail. So I like the idea of just having those options,
You can shallow fry yellowtail in panko crumb, and it goes pretty good.
Does it? I'll try it.
Yeah. Okay. You just always want to err on the underside on the, like as we grow up, you sort of get taught, if it's white meat, fish, pork, chicken, it kind of all somehow got lumped together. That you've always got to make sure you cook it properly. We've all dispelled that with fish now. Like there's other factors that go into making it right to eat, but like I think anytime you cook fish, always err on the undercooking sort of side, even if it's a little bit raw in the middle. Like that yellowtail is going to taste good.
If your buddy had a blackout on your next spearfishing trip, think, what would the outcome of that be? Do you know how to revive someone from a blackout? Would you even be in a position to do something about it? Or would you be diving, chasing after a fish as your buddy sinks down to the bottom of the ocean? Do you know where most blackouts happen? Do you know what you can do to minimize your risk of having a blackout? My name is Ted Hardy, and I'm the founder of freedivingsafety.com. In my free online course, you will learn the truth about shallow water blackout, the myth of, I don't push myself, I know my limits, I'm in tune with my body, how to minimize your risk of having a blackout, and most importantly, how to save your buddy's life if they have one. Visit freedivingsafety.com to sign up for your free course today. Dive safe out there. It's not even that hard.
Cool. All right. What sounds like you've started enjoying the pelagic side of towns. Yeah. Like that's the sort of the, because I notice everyone has a preference. Some people really like reef species, and they actually like the taste of the flesh better than they do the open water species. Hunting techniques though, what were some of the things you had to learn in order to hunt halibut and grouper successfully? So
it's a good question. I don't know. I guess I'm like naturally quiet. I'm naturally a quiet hunter, because all the halibut that I've shot, I've come up from behind, and I've been told that if you do that, you spook them, then that you should come up to them head first and then shoot them in the head. But I've literally never seen a halibut like head on. So I always come up from behind. It's so weird, Isaac. is I always know when I'm in the zone when like a random song starts playing in my head. I get I get a little bit like aggressive and angsty in the water, and it's something that I have to check of like, I feel like I still get off hunter vibes when I'm in the water, and I have to work on like relaxing and calming myself down. And whenever I've like really, really, really calmed down, like music will start, like a random song will start playing in my head. And for whatever reason, like my whole field of vision opens up and I just see more than I thought. And like, I love hunting halibut. I love that being like shallow and just meditating on the sand and then noticing something. And it's like, for me, like hunting halibut is like a passive meditative experience where I can kind of like float along, enjoy the moment, enjoy the waves and the water temperature, and you know, whether I'm hunting day or night, you know, like the sunshine or just like that like calm evening like energy. And then you stumble upon something, it's like, oh my God, hello friends, like hello, you're coming home with me today, this is fantastic. You know. And versus like a yellowtail, which is a very like active, fun, like the chase, like I love the fight and the chase and that like they're running and I'm like, it's so victorious, you know. It's so fun. Oh, but you had asked me, I'm all over the place. You had asked me like
No,
people
right.
that had helped me.
I was going to go halibut though. They're always like laying on the bottom, camouflage sort of thing. They're an ambush type predator fish. And so you sort of see the silhouette when you're in this sort of meditative state.
No,
and
the eyes. It's the eyes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've never shot one. I've never seen one in the water. Obviously, I haven't been in an area that holds them. So you spot the eyes. What do they look like?
Yeah, you know what's cool about halibut and why I like it is most fish, right? You look at them in the eyes and they swim away, right? They feel that aggressiveness. For whatever reason, when I look at halibut, like eye to eye, is we have this moment. It's like mano y mano, and it's like I see you, seeing me, seeing you, seeing me, seeing you, and I can literally pause and just have a moment of like, okay, I'm gonna think about like, where am I gonna shoot you? Like, how do I feel about shooting you? What are you doing with your day? Like, are you ready to die? I'm ready to eat you. Like, there's, I don't know, there's some, like a whole, I don't know, like
Isn't it?
Conversation that goes on with halibut that I never have the time to have. I guess it goes back to a spear to spear. I get to have my Coachella yoga moments with halibut because they just kind of hide in the sand and they just kind of like look at me and I look at them. And it just feels very spiritual and meditative when I shoot them versus other fish where it's very like active because they're moving and I'm moving and we're like hunting each other. I don't know.
So how and when do you switch gears? Like, do you sort of target species on specific days or times, or is it you just adapt to the moment?
I do. Usually when I go out on a boat with people, we all agree what we're hunting, right? So when you go to hunt white sea bass, it's like, okay, no one fires their gun until everyone has a white sea bass on the boat. So it's like you just kind of go, and so that means maybe you never fire your gun like in 6 hours, and that's just kind of like what you signed up for. And what's funny about that is I missed my first white sea bass, so I didn't know what a white sea bass looks like. That was another learning lesson: is study your species before going to hunt them. So I was on it was last March, and I was on this boat, and we're all like going hardcore white sea bass. I'm like, yes, they're silver fish. Like, I'm ready. And so I'm, for whatever reason, like ways away from the group, and I'm floating at the surface, and 6 feet below me is this fish that's sleeping. And it's the biggest fish I've ever seen. It was like 4 feet long, and it's not moving. It's just like sitting there, and it's got this yellow tail. I was like, oh, damn it. We're here for like white sea bass, but there's a yellowtail here. This is how new I was, right? And I was like, dang. I was like, well, so I literally, I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes went by, a long time. I just like floated over it, and I was like looking down. I was like, God, you're so beautiful. I'd love to shoot you, but I can't because I don't want to scare off any of the white sea bass. So I kept swimming. And I was like, and you know, hours went by, I never saw a white sea bass. And I come back to the boat, and they were like, you know, where's your fish? I was like, I didn't see anything. I just saw this like big silver, like 4 feet long yellowtail that was just like sleeping in the, you know, in the upper water column. And they all looked at me, and their jaws dropped, and they're like, you're kidding me, right? I'm like, no. And they're like, that is. They were like, was the tail like this, or was the tail like this? And I was like, oh, the tail was like this. And they're like, damn it, girl, that was a white sea bass. And I was like, no. And it is still to this day the fish that haunts me. It was so big. And I've yet to see a white sea bass personally in the water that was that big. So it's like the fish that got away. that I still, and it was sleeping and it was just sitting there, and it would have been so easy. I could have just shot it like from the surface, like top down. I would have like stoned it. Like, kills me.
Those moments though, they keep you coming back for more too, though, don't they? Like
They
you,
do. Yes.
the ones that get away, they're the ones where you're like, I'm coming back next time to get you.
Pretty much. And then that was March, and then they closed the public ramps because of COVID. And so I was like, that's it. Like, I know they're there. I'm going back. I'm going to get that fish. It's going to be that particular fish. And then they closed the ramps, so we couldn't go out. And that's when I started to shore dive. And I spent like 3 months getting chased by lifeguards on LA beaches, like into the water. So we would have to run from the parking lots to the ocean as the lifeguards in the trucks were like speeding down the beach to ticket us and kick us out of the ocean. And I'm in a 7 mil. I got like 60 pounds of weight. I got all my gear, and I'm like running into the ocean with my dive buddy. And then we'd be in there for 5 hours, and we'd come out, and those lifeguards were waiting for us 5 hours. And so then we were diving Palos Verdes, which there's like they're really big cliffs in like just south of LA. And so there's like 2 beaches. You can either enter like in the north side or the south side, but most people like will hike down the cliffs to get to the dive spots. So we would enter through the beaches, and then if we saw the lifeguards, we would have to like escape up the cliff. And it was bad. Like they like shut down the cliffs. There were game wardens everywhere. They were ticketing people. It was rough the 3 months, but I was like, I don't care. I got nothing else to do. The whole world was locked down. So we would just run into the ocean, hunt, and then run out, like run up a cliff and, make it work. Once I had to walk 2 miles with fish and all of my gear back to my car to avoid a lifeguard and like a police car. So. Did
you get COVID?
No, I have not gotten COVID.
Okay.
And what's crazy is I should have, because I've been back and forth to Mexico like 5 times this year. I've been on fishing boats. I have all these events, and I have never gotten COVID.
Wow. All right. This is a funny segue too, because I was going to ask you toughest situation. I thought it might have been a COVID one. That'd be a first for the show.
Yeah, no, I haven't had COVID. I've known a lot of divers that have gotten COVID, and they've all said that it's affected their breath hold. So fingers crossed that I don't get it. Mm-hmm.
What, like long term, or just like for the duration of the sort of the illness?
Afterwards, a couple of them have been like, my breath hold's been cut in half, and they're just something that they've got to like work on to regain their strength.
Yeah, okay.
They're like, it should bounce back, but it's not there yet.
Slow process. Okay.
Yeah, slow process.
All right, cool. What about you? So you've been in the water for a year. Have you had any scary moments, scary encounters, things where you were just like, apart from getting away from the lifeguards and scaling a cliff with 25 pounds of lead on and 18 fish over your back?
Fishing. Scary moments. Yeah, so when I first started, I joined this club, and I was told, join a club and you'll meet people that'll take you spearfishing. And that wasn't true for me. I would go to all the meetings, and no one ever wanted to take me spearfishing. It was so hard. And I found one of the board members of this club was like, all right, fine. Like, I will take you lobster diving. And as a scuba diver, I've dove at night. So I thought I was comfortable like diving at night. But, you have the lobster bag, the mutiny bag, right? Like with all the holes that like all wrapped around you. And I was in
like this one.
Pretty much. Yeah, kind of like that one.
Cool.
Only I didn't have the metal piece, so it was like literally just like attached. It was attached to me, right? And so I'm in the water, and I refuse to dive this beach because of these experiences. It's called cursed. It's called Crystal Cove, and I feel like it's cursed. I won't dive it. And Monarch. So I'm in the water, and the person that took me, like I was trying to keep up with him, but I wasn't able to. He was really fast. Like he was like up, down, up, down, up, down. It was my first exposure to lobster diving. I didn't realize like how quick it was. Like you're up, down, you're hunting, you're pulling, bugs out of holes. It was a whole different style. It's different than spearfishing, right? Because I'm trying to keep up, and I just can't. And the tides changed, and I didn't know the underwater landscape. And so I see his light like kind of a ways away, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna like swim a straight line to him. But what I didn't, not knowing the underwater landscape, I didn't realize that between me and him, there were all these like boulders and like seagrass.
Wow.
And I got my lobster bag got caught I had one lobster, and I got caught on the seagrass, and like there was a rip current and the tides were changing, and I couldn't get free of the seagrass. I just couldn't get free. And it was also kind of shallow. And I'm like I was like scampering over the rocks, and like the waves are crashing in my snorkel, like water's going in my snorkel. And I had this moment of going, oh my God, like this is it. Like this is where I die. Like this is the moment. I did not think it was gonna be this moment, but this is the moment. And I just kind of had this moment. I made my peace with it. And I was swimming harder than I've ever swam before. And I would break free, but then I would get sucked back in and thrown. I was just being like, it was like a washing machine. I was being thrown on the rocks and like run over the rocks. I don't know, 15 minutes went by, and then I see a light, and I think it's my friend. So I'm like, oh my God, I broke free, and I'm like sweating, I'm panting, I'm totally freaked out. I've only been free diving for a month. And I swim over to this light, and it's not my friend, it's some stranger. And I just kind of like grab him, and I'm like, my name is Addrianna. I am a trans. I need you to take me to shore. And he's like, well, my name is Danny, and I will do that for you. And he like hooked my arm, and we like swam backwards. And this guy, like, bless his heart, like dropped his lobster dive, swam me back to shore, and sat with me until I calmed down, and like talked me through it. Like, what happened? How did you separate from your buddy? How did you get stuck? Like, here's what you need to know about this like dive area and why it's dangerous. And this is not a place for new people. And we had this whole conversation. And I was like, you are literally a guardian angel. Like, thank you so much. And that was my first education about like, you need to have a dive plan, an exit entry strategy. You and your dive buddy need to be on the same page. Like, if you take a new person, you never leave their side. Like, so it was scary, and I thought I was going to die, but I learned so much from that experience about what not to do and how to do it when I take people out.
There's some funny attitudes here, like we've taken new people out. We should chat about. Like, I mean, you know yourself now that you've been going a year. Like, taking new people out is pretty painful. Like, if you're a busy, motivated person, you've got a job and a business and a family and all the other stuff, and you make a day to take out new people diving, it's a big like gift you're giving them, and
yes.
do you know what I mean? So like even when you're in a club, like a lot of those people, they love the social side of spearfishing, but they don't want to take new people out. Yeah. And sometimes it's okay, I guess. Like it's just part of it, you know. Like, but bless the ones that do, because otherwise none of us would get a start. So right. Yeah, for sure. But now that you've been going a year too, like one of the other bad things is it's like you get into your little clique, like, and you know, because finding a dive buddy that will be there on the surface when you come back, that will be able to put a second shot on your fish, that you know will drop you on the right drift line in the boat, that you know has a similar mindset with regards to like fun work sort of balance, you know, because if you go out with people that just want to have fun, a lot of the time you just don't even shoot any fish. They don't even care about. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so there's all these funny things that, you know, like, and you take new people out, they're hopeless. You know, they might shoot one fish that's, well, they might shoot a few fish, but they're not, you know, it's not the type of spearfishing you generally you enjoy personally. So, did you have anything?
I learned it. Yeah, no, I learned that. And so when I was struggling to find people to take me, it finally occurred to me, oh my gosh, like these people, they're married, they have full-time jobs, they have kids, they have one day that they can go out when the weather's good. The last thing they want to do is spend that day with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, who's going to spook the fish. So I understood it. And even though I didn't accept it, I didn't like it, like I got it. But it's just one of the obstacles, you know, to being a new 100%. Person. Right. And if you don't have a family member, if you don't have a significant other, you know, if you're not in it, like becoming like a new person like I was, it's really challenging.
I think there's another attitude too that I haven't talked about much on the show, and that's like, and I've confronted it, running a spearfishing podcast and a blog that helps people get started spearfishing. It's, some of the older guys would say, why are you encouraging people to start spearfishing? There's already a scarce resource. Now you're bringing in potentially hundreds or thousands of other people into our resource, taking our fish and our spots and ruining it for the rest of us. It's like, that's another attitude that you can confront as well. I guess the way I get around telling them is like, well, if you teach people to spearfish right from the start and they have a sustainable mindset and they operate safely in buddy pairs and all these sorts of things, they're going to be good dive buddies for you, and they're also not going to rape the resource, so because they've been taught about how to look after it from the start. So I don't know, but there is some, like, it's a funny little dynamic for noob Spearos, I think.
I've run into that a lot too, and I feel like there's definitely like a new attitude, a new wave, a new energy coming into the sport right now. And what has endured is that sort of salty attitude, right? Of like, this is my ocean, and they've really earned it. They've fought with the government, they fought with local laws to like have the right to spearfish, and I really respect that, and I definitely don't want to trample on that. But it does prohibit people from getting into it, and when they're gone, like who is there going to be to continue fighting those battles? And so I think you really are passionate about the sport. You have to take the people who are eager and train them right, so they can pass on the proper mindset and methodologies. Don't blow up little things. They don't blow up spots. Don't overfish the reef. They just those simple things. The sooner you learn that and understand that, the better you are, like, for the environment.
Love it. Perfect timing. Let's head into Veterans Vault, where we're going to chat about SoCal Dive Babes. One of the first things that struck me when I went over to SoCalDiveBabes.com is you've got this monthly meeting section, and you talk, and you have expert speakers that come in, and you have like these themed parties that where maybe there's some spearfishing involved, but there's definitely someone talking and there's some fun stuff going on. And like, you've got Julie Riffe here talking about self-reliant gun ownership. There was Brandon talking about dive safety. You've got Julie coming back next month to talk about reading bait and fish behavior. Then you've got another guy from the Department of Fish and Game talking about rules, regs, and how to read weather apps. These are just awesome topics to, like, if you've just come into spearfishing, this is exactly the kind of stuff and the conversations you want to be around to be intentional in your spearfishing, to do it safely and sustainably and selectively. So hats off to you. Like, what a really, really well structured and cool thing. Like, if I was in that part of the world, I would probably have to get like an operation to change my gender so I could come along to your meetings.
We're +1. We all of our meetings are a +1 event. So you're welcome to be my +1, Isaac, anytime.
Cool. No, I really like it. I like it, and it's relevant topics. Like, tell us a little bit about some of these past parties you've had and what kind of happens at one.
Yeah. So they got a delayed start because of COVID, right? So we couldn't get together until like the fall. So our first one was a summer soiree, and that was our first event just to get the girls around one another. And lobster season just started, so we had everyone bring lobster, and we had a big outdoor, like, lobster veggie grill. We had a little raffle, and Julie Riffe showed up, and I was like, oh my God, I was so starstruck. I was like, oh my God, Julie's here. And she's like, raffle? No one told me about a raffle. I'm going to donate the brand new Riffe dry bags. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, Yeah. I just felt so legit in that moment. And Julie just fell in love with the group, and she has 2 daughters, and Julie knows exactly what it's like to be a girl in this sport. And so she's been on board with us, like, from that start, from our very first event. And she's like, anything I can do to help this flourish, thrive, and grow so that my daughters have a place that I feel good about them going, I am all for. And so our first event was really just sort of like, let's get to know one another. And then our second event, we called it Babes Giving. If there's one thing I can do, it's like, I can name things, right? So I named it Babes Giving, and that was more of like, okay, let's, we got some traction. People are paying attention to us. Let's open it up and like, let's invite like the community. We had like 65 people show up. And when you think about like spearfishing clubs and meetings, like no one gets those turnouts, right? And we had this huge raffle, and it was just phenomenal. And the thing that like I keep hearing that surprises me Our women say to me, Addrianna, like I love these events. I got a job by talking to someone. I love networking with this person. The friendships that are forming, the dive buddy partnerships that are forming are just like incredible. Like they're like lifelong. And so then December, we just did a gift exchange because of COVID. People were really nervous.
Yep.
And then, so this year, my goal with 2021 is to get all the girls like geared up and trained up. So all the things that I needed when I first started that weren't available, I'm making available so that these girls like how to read apps, how to know like when to go in the water, where to go, everything with chlorophyll count, wind, swell, wave energy, all of that. I want them to know that, like reading bait fish behavior, how to use your gun. We're going to have a band tying, crimping, like everyone's going to get crimps and line, like, how to do that on your own. Like I want this year for the girls to be like self-reliant, independent, competent, safe, knowledgeable divers. Because next year in 2022, I'm going to have the Dive Babe of the Year competition. It's going to be a year-long competition. So this year, we're going to get them geared up, skilled up. And next year, we're going to have like a bigger, more comprehensive competition. And so in January, I was like, all right, we got to launch this mentorship, forum. That's what's missing for new people. Like we talked about, if you don't know anybody, finding someone to mentor you is really hard, and it's absolutely critical to be successful and safe in this sport. Like it's not like anything else where you can just like take a class, buy a pass. Like you need someone with you in order to do this sport, right? And it's because it's not just shooting fish. It's like you shoot the fish and then what do you do? How do you process it? Do you bring dangerous, gelatinous, toxic ceviche to your potluck, or do you bring like a healthy dish? All of those things. So I wanted to start the year off with dive safety and spear gun, like self-reliant spear gun ownership. So Julie, really talked about like no matter what gun you have, how can you get the most mileage out of that gun? So whether you have a 90 or a 115, can you shoot a yellowtail with a 90? Yeah, here's how, right? So I really loved that piece of it. And then Brandon went into, really in depth about dive safety. And so this month, and it was Julie's idea. She's like, I want to talk about like bait fish behavior and how to know when the big fish are around, how to know when to give up on a fish, how to read the conditions, which then led into, okay, well, let's get a DFG person to talk about like rules and regs for fish, but also how to read all those apps. Like what are the most recommended apps? Because I have like 10 apps on my phone for weather, and I still don't know what I'm looking at, to be honest. So, and then, it's just every month we're gonna build on it. We're gonna have a class on how to fillet your fish to optimize your yield. All the different cuts, how to take fish fins, like fish fins, if you dip them in cornstarch and fry them in oil, they're like chips. Like how to like literally use like every single part of your fish. And then band tying, like tournament competitions. The summer, I want to focus on ocean conservation and breath work. So I have a couple different instructors who are going to come in and teach us like lung stretches and exercises and ways to like increase breath hold. And it's just going to keep growing so that next year when we do the Dive Babe of the Year competition, like, they're going in confident and ready.
Have you got a pool training group or any clubs that are attached to you guys? Because I think that's a fantastic way to...
Agree. So San Diego, so Just Get Wet, they are the Molchanovs body of knowledge.
Yep.
Thank you. They do pool training, which I've gone to a couple of times, but there's no one in LA. So that's actually, it's funny you said that. I'm working on that for March, looking for someone in LA who can lead pool training.
What else do you need?
The conditioning.
What else do you need from the community in order to help make SoCal Dive Babes, the special thing that you've clearly got a vision for?
You know what? Thanks for asking. I think I need sponsorship and gear. So I'm working on building a gear loaner program. So that and...
so could people send you secondhand equipment and stuff, or like, obviously... Yeah. I mean, if you've got... one thing I've talked to like a lot of manufacturers and stuff over the years, and like, like with spearfishing equipment, not many retailers have got a swimming pool out the back where you can jump in and test out 5 different spear guns and 4 different wetsuits, and it's pretty much just you put something out on a forum, you go, hey, what's this wetsuit like versus this wetsuit, and then hopefully 10 people get on with some good points, and you can somehow make an informed choice. But one of the best ways to buy a bit of equipment is to use the bloody stuff. And then, so, like I guess a lot of companies, it's probably in their best interest to send you some stuff as well, because, your members and the ladies that are trying out the spearfishing for the first time, that's the first bit of equipment that they're going to come into contact with, and they're more likely to buy it. Because if 100%. I put on a wetsuit and I jump in and I go, this is warm, I can move, it does everything I want, it looks cool, bang, I'm going to buy one,
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and same
cool.
with guns. Same with guns, right? So I've only ever used wood guns, and I have non-wood guns, but I just can't use them. And the girls that I give the pipe guns to, they're like, oh yeah, no, those wood guns are too intimidating. They go out and they buy, they buy a Pathos, they buy a pipe gun. So that's very true. Same thing. I'll loan out my Epsilon wetsuit, and that's the wetsuit that they end up buying.
Is that a really comfortable wetsuit for women? Is it cut well?
Oh my God. The Epsilon Fusion. I love it so much. It's it fits and it's stretchy and it's nice. I've had a Polo Sub and I've had a SEAC, and I don't know what it is about the Epsilon, but I really love it. And I've only tried 3, so I can't say, I haven't tried the wife for the Wahina, or, there's so many, out there.
For sure.
But
so what you're asking for is all those manufacturers just to send you a suit so you know.
Pretty much. Yeah, I know. Send me all your suits, all your guns, all your fins. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, cool. So what else is happening sort of in and around the trap? So I see you've built a bit of a team of people that are helping you out. Like you've got Linz and Nicole, Emily, Isabella, Heather, Yanina. How do they sort of help out? What's the involvement of the team and the SoCal Dive Babes?
Oh, I love that you're on the website. So Linz runs the lobster clinic. So I don't like lobster diving because of my experiences, right? I don't love it. But Linz does. And she was in Hawaii, and her mentor, that's how she got into spearfishing, was lobster diving. So she's sort of taken it on herself to do these lobster clinics, and she'll take 4 or 5 girls out. And it's fantastic. She does everything, the dive plan. Everyone's got glow sticks, everyone's got a dive buddy. It's fantastic. And they always get at least, 1 lobster per person. So that's what she does. So I'm turning SoCal Dive Babes into a nonprofit, and Heather's going to be treasurer, and she's that, and she helps with events. We hosted the first 2 events at her place. Janina is just a killer, and she is starting her own sustainable seafood company. So she's helping on the fish education piece, and what to do with the fish and how to treat the fish. And she's incredible. Nicole has her own nonprofit. She's an artist. So SoCal Dive Babes, we're made up of all kinds of people, right? We're mothers, we're artists, we're environmentalists, we're activists, we're law enforcement officers, we're all of the things. So, people, they just want to connect. So they bring whatever they have, whatever they have to bring. So Nicole's helped with our merchandising, and we have, so in May, we're doing our first tournament. It's an all women spearfishing tournament. It's in Baja. Yep. And it's called the Wicked Mermaid, and she helped her and Julie Riffe's daughter Sierra created the logo for it. And it's so badass, Isaac. It's a mermaid who's triumphantly choking an octopus while holding a trident with just fish hanging off of her waist. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. We are calling this tournament the Wicked Mermaid, and it is going to go off. So there's 16 spots, and there's 11 people already signed up for it. And I'm so excited. So all my attention right now is going towards making this tournament happen. So much to do as one person. It's a lot of work. So everyone sort of does something in some way. I have a whole welcome community. So once you are hey, I want to be a part of the SoCal Dive Babes, it's okay, you have to come onto our WhatsApp thread. And I have 6 girls. And I call it the cascading introduction. So someone comes on and they have to say their name, where they're from, their experience, what they want out of the group. And then the first person to respond has to say, hey, welcome. We're so stoked you're here. We can't wait to interact with you, get in the water with you. And then the next person in the welcome community has to build off of that and invite them to an event. And the next person has to make sure that they get in the water. There's all these different steps, right, that they get hit on. It's when you start a new job, that first day, that first impression with how does the team greet you? And so I want to make sure that they just get love bombed and welcomed. It's intimidating, it's a scary sport. It's a group of 80 women on that thread. You don't know who you're putting yourself out to. So they get hit by 5 different women welcoming them, showing them the ropes, private messaging them and like just getting them up to speed. So little things like that.
Awesome. And okay, so people can find SoCalDiveBabes.com. It's SoCal babes.com. You guys are on
dive. You forget dive babes.
Did I? Sorry. Okay, sorry. Let's start
again. It happens a lot.
SoCalDiveBabes.com.
Yeah.
All right. And then you're on Instagram. There's a Facebook going, and you've got how do they get into this WhatsApp chat?
Oh, so they if they go onto the website, there's a link, a join link, and that takes them to a private WhatsApp message to me, and then I chat with them and I get them added, or they can just direct message me on Instagram to get involved.
Cool. Awesome. All right, I'm going to link that stuff up in today's show notes. So it'll be noobspearo.com/dive babes. How's that?
Okay, that's fine. It's cute. So when I came up with the name, I was like, oh my God, this is so marketable. I love it. It tells us geography, tells us where, what, and who. And everyone's like, oh, are you bringing the Dive Babes with you? And I'm like, I am. They're coming with me. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Cool. All right. So people can reach out and find out a little bit more about you through that. I wanted to move on and chat about one of the funniest things that's happened to you in your spearfishing experience so far.
Oh my God. So I think the funniest things that have happened to me have to do with, as I said, the way to learn is you just say yes and show up and you kind of make the best of it, right? I don't know if this is like podcast appropriate, but when I think of like funny things that have happened to me, so I learned how to dive, I told you, through David. And so I would like go out on the boat, and then I would go into my local Spearo shop, Spear America, and the owner, Dave Freeman, who's a fantastic Spearo, it was COVID, so there was no one in there but me. And he and I would talk about what I did. And he's like, okay, so next time do this. So it was like this back and forth. I go on the water with David, and then I come into the Spear shop and talk to Dave, right? So one day I get this message from this guy on Instagram. He's like, hey, I was at Spear America, and Dave said that, you're really familiar with the Channel Islands. Do you want to come, on the boat with me? I'd love to like get to know new people. I was like, absolutely. That sounds great. He's like, well, the boat leaves at 4 a.m. And I was like, that's really early, right? Because it's already like a 2-hour drive for me. I was like, I can do it, but can I sleep on the boat the night before? He's like, no, because it's a boat club. But you can stay with me. I have an extra room. And I'm like, okay, perfect. No problem. So I drive up and it's the day before my birthday. So I'm like, okay, this is it, man. I'm going to get like a big birthday fish. I brought a birthday cake for the boats and everyone on the boat. And I got like hard kombucha. We're going to celebrate. I got a little like birthday, tiara for myself. So I was like, I'm going to hold the fish in one hand and my tiara and like my birthday cake is going to be the best Instagram photo ever. Right. So I'm all ready. Roll up to the address, and it's not a house or apartment. It's an RV park. And I was like, ooh, God, this is like where people get killed. Like, I was like, oh God, I don't know. This is, I'm feeling a little unsafe. So I drop a pin, I send it to all my friends. I was like, hey guys, just so you know, like I'm staying at this place. And so like RV parks, they have like these roads. They're just like kind of like these random like rows and rows and rows. And I'm driving around. I can't find this guy's like place. And he appears out of the dark, out of nowhere with this dog. And he flags me down and he's like, all right, I want you to go to the end of this row and park by the last RV. I'm like, perfect. So I'm thinking that the last RV must be his, right? So I drive down and I park and I get out and I have all of this gear. Like I got like 3 guns, my birthday cake, snacks, my overnight stuff on my back. I'm loaded up with like stuff, right? And I'm like, and I don't see him anywhere. I'm like, oh, well, I guess, obviously he's probably in the RV that I parked next to. So I walk into the RV and there's just a guy in like boxers eating chips, not even watching TV, not even on the phone, just like eating chips. And I was like, hey, I'm Scotty's friend. I'm gonna look at him and he's just like eating chips. And he's like, who's Scotty? And I was like, oh, is this, like, he doesn't live here? He's like, no. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I got like guns and bag and gear, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Have a great night, sir. And like I walk out and I'm wandering around this RV park with like all of this shit. Like, where is this guy? Where is this guy? Finally, again, for the second time, he appears out of the dark with a dog and he waves me over. And I'm like, okay, could you help me out? I'm not one of those girls that's like, I'm going to load my own gun and do all my stuff and carry my own ice. I'm like, no, the more the merrier. Like, let's all just be in on this together. So I walk into his RV and it's like midnight. I'm super tired. I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed. I unpack my cake, and that's all I really cared about at this point. I was like, I have to preserve this cake. And I'm like, okay, I'm like ready for bed. And there's only one bedroom. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, these are the things that your mother warned you about, like all of like the public service things warn you about. And I'm like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Everything's gone so well so far. Addrianna, maybe you shouldn't have like said yes. Like, this is super awkward. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna take the bed then, and you're just gonna like sleep on like the table here. And he's like, yeah, like the table fell down to the bed. I'll just take the table bed. And I'm like, cool. So I go to bed, and I'm falling asleep, and my eyes are closed, and I'm in that like half awake, half sleep space. And he walks into the room, and he stands next to the bed, like doesn't face me, but just like perpendicular next to the bed. And he doesn't make eye contact, but he just kind of like looks down at me like with some side eye. And he goes, if you stay one night, I'm not going to make it awkward. But if you stay a second night, I'm going to make it awkward. And then he turns around and walks out. And I was like, what? What did you just say? Who says that? What the fuck just happened? Who goes and says, I'm going to make it awkward if you stay 2 nights in my RV, in my random RV camp that I wouldn't let you, I would help you find. Like, I was like, oh my God. So I didn't sleep at all that night. I was like one eye open. It was so creepy. And then like the next day on the boat, it was just, it was so weird. It was just so weird. And I invited my friend, Michael, onto the boat. Thank God. I was like, Michael, I gotta tell you what happened last night. Like, is that like a thing guys do? Do they say that? Like, have you ever said that to someone before? And he's like, you're fucking kidding me. I'm like, I'm not kidding you. He actually said he was not going to make it awkward last night. But if like I was too tired to like drive home after today's dive, like what does that even mean? So it's like this whole joke. We all call him Awkward Scotty. And so I went into Spear America and I was like, Dave, you and I need to have a conversation about who you give my number to for dive buddies, because that was not cool. That was not cool. And he's just laughing. I was like, did you know? He's like, I swear to you, I didn't know. But like, he's a Navy guy. So I think his social skills were off. And I was like, oh, you think? So
what was the second night like?
I didn't say. I was off that boat. I was off that boat. I like shot my fish and I ran away. And
I would too.
Oh,
I'm surprised you didn't bolt. I'm surprised you didn't bolt that night. I would have just
I didn't like know where to go. I was like, it's my birthday dive. I was like, I'm just gonna make it. I'm gonna make it through the night. I'm gonna dive my ass off. I'm in the water. I won't have to talk to him. It was so weird. Oh my God. But
I maybe would have loaded a spear gun and just had it pointed towards the doorway. Far out.
And I have knives, right? I had my dive belt in the room. So I was like, I took my knife off my dive belt. This is so bad. And I put it under my pillow. And the thing is, that's like one of many stories. I could straight up write a small book about Awkward Scotty stories that I have a dozen of them. So, So for funny experiences, it's about like other divers. And that's where I started the women's group, right? So I went from like, no one will dive with me to, okay, I got one guy that'll take me on his boat to, oh shit, the ramps have closed down. So now I got to shore dive. So I'm being chased by lifeguards for several months. And then it was Awkward Scotty. And then it was, I got invited to Baja for 10 days with those guys. And I was like, I need to find chicks. Like I just do. I need to find other women that dive. And so I got to work and found them. I was in every corner of Southern California. So
love it. That's awesome. It's a good story. I'm glad you're one of those people that just, you turn, the frustrations and the issues that you deal with in life into solutions, like, I think, I can relate to that. Like, I really like people like you that, like, just, shit happens. That it's like how you respond to it and what you do with it. Like you let it inspire you and create something really cool. So it's awesome.
And I've told that story like at some of the girls' get-togethers, and wherever I tell it, I laugh, and and the girls are laughing, and I think what it does, it sort of it dispels that nervousness of like, oh yeah, this shit does happen. And she is okay. Like, she made it, and here's how she handled it. And so, cause it does happen. Like, you know, the girls, we get put into some awkward, uncomfortable, weird situations, and knowing how to navigate it. And I'm always like, girls, you got knives on you, you got spear guns, like you have resources. Like, so we talk about that, like how to, like, boat etiquette, you know, dive etiquette, not just how to be a good buddy and how, you know, how to get reinvited on boats, but how to, like, carry yourself, you know, when you go out with a bunch of strangers. So we talk about all that. You know, one of the things about diving is, so when I was 17, I was in a coma and I was paralyzed on the right side of my body, right? I went through all of this, like, tragic physical stuff. And when I came out of that, so I spent my whole 20s, like, learning just how to stand up straight and how to move and how to function. And it was just a real deep dive into, you know, just grit and resilience and optimism. Yep. And I made a bucket list, you know, during those years. And being in the ocean and living sustainably was the number one thing on the list, after, like, being able to stand up straight. It was stand up straight and be out of pain. And then it was ocean and sustainable living. And so when I discovered freediving and spearfishing, I was like, oh my God, like, this is my number 2 from that list. And so my sort of, like, ambition and my commitment to the sport and to women in the sport, it comes from this really deep, what I consider, like, sacred part of my soul. Around, like, living, of how to live and how I want to live and who I want to be in the world, and like a legacy that I want to live. And that is not just the SoCal Dive Babes legacy, but like I said, we are a women's community. It's how do women interact with one another? How can we get rid of that petty competition and all of just that, like, nastiness and, like, bullshit that can come, that's unnecessary in women's dynamics? How can we get rid of that and like, just enjoy life, support each other, and do this awesome thing that is, like, live off of the land, right?
Cool. Love it. Awesome. That's bloody awesome.
Hey Shrek, Jeremy here, man. I'm back. Just wanted to say the podcast is growing from strength to strength, my friend. Hoorah, man. I just wanted to say thank you for your continual support from the Noob Sparrow listeners, subscribing, reading, writing, and submitting kick-ass spearfishing adventures from all over the planet. Your listeners kick ass, and Shrek, my friend, so do you. All you guys, come check out the next edition of Spearing Magazine at spearingmagazine.com. Jeremy out.
I love that feeling underwater when you pull the trigger and you know exactly where that shaft is going. You want something dependable. You want to put that fish that you've been chasing for a lifetime in the boat, in the cooler, in the esky, in the chili bin, if you're in New Zealand. Why do we call all these things different names? Anyway, today's show sponsor, KillshotSpearguns.com, make awesome wooden timber spear guns, a fantastic shooting platform. If you've ever shot a big timber gun, you know the reliability that you get from these things. He mostly makes enclosed track spear guns. Visit him at KillshotSpearguns.com. Use the code NOOB to save $30 on any Killshot spear gun. Really love the high level stuff. I want to bring it right back down and just be infinitely practical with you right now. Wanted to chat about gear. So, you talked about the Epsilon wetsuit that you love, the Epsilon, what was the name of it?
Epsilon wetsuit?
Yeah, was it like
Fusion.
a brand?
Oh, the Fusion.
Fusion, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Get stretchy.
Stretchy. So sometimes though with a really stretchy wetsuit, like, you lose a little bit of the longevity, you know, because it's not as durable. How have you found that?
I'm noticing that.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that. So all of my gear was stolen, actually. My entire gear bag was stolen in June. And so I had to start from scratch. And so everything except for my gun actually was stolen. And so that's when I got into the Epsilon suit, and it was recommended to me. And it's the only off the rack men's suit that I feel like fits me. And I just noticed a lot of the girls in Southern California, they gravitate towards that suit because it fits really well. Yeah. It fits our bodies. I would ideally, Isaac, I would have a SoCal Dive Babe suit. So I'm actually talking to Roger Yazak right now. Like, hey, I want to get these girls a suit that's like, we got Dive Babe, we got our like logo on it, and like it's fit for them. And it's, unless you're going to get a custom suit, you're kind of like, gotta do the best that, you can with what you got. And I love the Epsilon suit. But my favorite gear that I protect with my life are my Meandros fins. I'm obsessed with my Meandros X-Pro fins.
You like the Greek stuff, the Greek fins. What do you like about them?
Are they Greek? Oh my God. Okay, so I first bought Alchemies because I went to Kona Camp. The founder of FII, Martin, he does this free dive camp every October. So I was like, perfect. I just got certified. I'm going to go to camp. I'm going to get better. And I had plastic fins. And he's like, girl, you've got to get yourself some carbon. I'm like, I know. He's like, so, you should get yourself some Alchemies. So I did, and I dropped $600 on these Alchemy fins. And I call them Ferraris for your feet. And I would kick, and I would be 40 feet in 4 kicks. I would just like zoom, zoom, zoom. I was super fast. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to be the best Spearo ever. Until I got caught in really bad surge. So I shot a fish, and it was the first time my shaft got stuck in a rock. And I was kind of shallow, and the surge just picked up out of nowhere. And I did not have enough power to fight the fish, to pull my shaft, and to fight the current. Mm-hmm. And so I literally the next day went into Spear America and was like, Dave, I almost drowned with these fins. And he was like bending them. He's like, I've had linguine stiffer than this. And he was like bending them back and forth.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, can you please help me? And he put me in Meandros, and I'm obsessed with the fins. And they're just like, they're not too long. They have the right snap. I'm fast. I can fight water. I fight fish. Like, I love them. I'm like literally obsessed.
I have this debate with people as well. Like, you talk to the freediver type people, and they love those super like elastic fins that have got these awesome bends in them, and they're meant to give you the ultimate in sort of efficiency. So you minimize oxygen consumption and all this sort of stuff. And they're right. They are those things. But when you deal with current and surge and fighting fish, and you need a little bit of power out of the mark, like they don't have the rigidity there to give it to you. You've still got to try and do this economical finning technique, but you're like in a panic, do or die. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Totally.
Yeah, I sort of think like, spearfishing borrows a lot of ideas and stuff from freediving, but some of it's just the application is not practical for us. It's like we need power down low when we want it, and I'm awesome. I'm stoked you found a set of fins that does that for you. Did you get composites or carbon fiber? Because I guess the other thing is the carbon fiber, while it is pretty strong, it's not as strong as a composite fiberglass material.
Oh, they're carbon fiber, and I'm sure I'm going to snap them. Yeah. I have a fin budget for when I do.
Yeah, I think if you get, like, my expectation with carbon fiber fins is 5 years, because, like you say, you drop $500 or $600. That's probably a fairly reasonable estimate of what you want to drop on them with foot pockets, or maybe even without. But yeah, you need five years out of them, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Otherwise, just buy composites, because they will definitely give you that long. But yeah, cool. All right. Well,
are you saying composites last longer?
Yeah, the fiberglass material lasts longer. Yeah, they have other stuff built into them, and just the way they're constructed and the materials used, they definitely, like, you can wear them shore diving, and things like that. So that's still not as probably. I don't know if they're as strong or stronger than plastics, but they're sort of that happy medium, I think. And a lot of Spearos, the carbon fiber will give you the ultimate in performance, but they're definitely not as strong as fiberglass or plastic fins. So, but yeah, the Meandros, they're getting the job done for you, so that's awesome. You found that happy place.
I did.
So, cool. I guess the other thing is getting a happy sort of balance between the foot pockets and your blades as well, but you must have that right.
Yeah, you know what? So that's funny because I started off with the S-wing. I think they were Setmons, the S-wings.
Yep.
And they were too heavy. So I felt like I had these super light feathers with concrete blocks on them. So then I went back in and I was like, oh my gosh, these fins, these pockets are too heavy. So then I went to the Pathos pockets, and I'm happy. So the Pathos pockets, the Meandros fins are my happy place.
Yep. Another Greek company there. So there's the happiness. That's cool. Yeah, everyone's sort of got their own preferences with stuff, and you get into you watch these long debates and stuff, and it's interesting the people that have been around and actually tried out all of the different stuff and all of the different combinations, because they're few and far between. Generally, we get introduced to a bit of equipment, it works, and then that's what we do for the rest of our lives. You know, so it's that's funny. Yeah, all good. All right. Last sort of section of the show is Spearo Q&A. It's some sort of faster fire questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, cool. What is the single best piece of advice you've ever been given for spearfishing?
2 is one is none. So when you go, always have 2 of everything when you go on a boat. So I always have 2 masks, 2 snorkels, 2 full weight belts. The only thing I don't have 2 of is fins. But I even have a backup wetsuit, like wetsuit top. 2 is one is none.
Cool.
And a positive attitude. Someone's like, I would be like, oh, I don't know if I can load this. And they'd be like, well, not with that attitude. So my second thing is attitude.
Love it. All right. If you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. What would I do differently?
It's all good. I'll just edit out your awkward pause.
Ask me again. It'll be awkward. What would I do differently?
If you don't answer this question the second time I ask you, it's going to get awkward. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I know it was a little inappropriate.
I love that. Got to bring it back around. How do people answer that? I don't even know.
It's all good. So, I mean, some people think and they go back and they just realize the host of errors they made, and they think, oh, were they avoidable? If I had done this, maybe that wouldn't happen. But I mean, the way you learn and how you learned it, has influenced who you are now. So some people, they wouldn't do anything differently. So
I love all my mistakes. Like, I mean, I learned more from how I failed in this sport than my successes. So I don't know. I don't think anything. I don't think anything.
All right. What's been the single best resource for improving your spearfishing? Whether it's videos, books, obviously the Noob Spearo podcast is pretty awesome, but anything else, obviously having a community is pretty cool, but in terms of actual a practical learning resource, is there anything that's helped you more than anything else?
Honestly, hanging out in spearfishing shops. So I would just spend hours just hanging out, and then the people that come in and out of the shops to buy gear, and there's just sort of like a hangout vibe, and I would pick their brain. Mm-hmm. And that's where that's my best resource, because they have local knowledge. So I can talk to them about actual experiences that I had on locations and dives that they're familiar with. Yeah. And that's how I met people to go on trips too. So hanging out at dive shops is awesome.
I can relate to that. And you met Scotty too, who's become your husband. So congratulations.
Thank you. We're very happy together.
Last question. Could you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in one sentence?
For me, it means peace, freedom, and community.
Nice. Sorry, I lost the internet connection.
Not really a sentence. Those are just words, but I don't really have a sentence for you.
Well, I think, you sort of talked about this earlier, it ties back into one of the most important values you have for your life, which is leading an ocean-going life that is sustainable, and so, yeah. Awesome. I've really enjoyed this, Addrianna. I had some good laughs. What were you going to say? Yeah.
I'm sorry. So my last trip to Baja, I took 3 girls, and we were all diving, and everyone was shooting fish but me. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm the only one that's been here before. I should be better. I know what I'm doing. They've never been here before. What the fuck? And I was super angsty. And on the second day, I'm still angsty, and I dive down, and I'm at 15 feet. And this massive turtle, and I mean bigger than a Maui turtle, a massive, massive turtle, swims up to me and starts doing circles around me. And it starts to talk to me. And it's like, Addrianna, this ocean owes you nothing. The fish don't owe you their lives. The water doesn't owe you good conditions. I don't owe you anything. It's a privilege to be in this ocean, and it's a water, and it's a privilege to shoot these fish. And then it swam away. And I went back to the surface, and I don't know what it was, but like that was like the message that I needed to hear. And it shifted my entire demeanor. My energy shifted, my nervous system, like I relaxed. And the next dive, I dove down 40 feet and there wasn't a single fish in sight. And I just laid there on the bottom. And I'd say 45 seconds goes by and two of the largest fish I have ever seen in my entire life swim by. And I was so calm that they didn't see me. They just were casually moving, and they were so big, I thought they were black sea bass. And I was down there going, oh my God, what is this? Like, am I going to shoot it? I only have a 100. Like, of course I'm going to shoot it, but are you going to shoot it? Yes. And I had this whole conversation with myself, and I shot it, and it ended up being an 80-pound grouper. And so wow. I love that story because like the thing I love so much about spearfishing are those lessons, right? Like I go into it, and I can't help it, but I go into it with an agenda. I go into it as this like this ambitious like hunter, I want the fish and I want to serve it to people and I want the photo and like I want all those things, but that is not what it's about. It is not what it's about. It's not where the magic is. It's not where the beauty is. It's not where the magic is. And so having, those moments in the ocean where I let the ocean talk to me and teach me and tell me what to do and how to be and what it wants out of me is really why I go back time and time and time again.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm really glad you pulled me up to tell me that story and I can relate to it on a lot of levels. That was powerful. Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome, Addrianna. I've had just a mad chat with you. I've really enjoyed learning more about the SoCal Dive Babes and some of the mindsets and motivations that drive you as a person and as a spearer. And I thank you for what you're doing in the community. And if there's ever any opportunities to collaborate in the future, I am all for it. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Cool. Where can people come and find you and all the things SoCal Dive Babes?
Yeah, go to Instagram, SoCal Dive Babes, and we have a Facebook page. It's not that busy, so I'd say stick to Instagram and go follow our website. It's I'm building it slowly, so we're gonna add education pages to it. We're gonna have catch and cook series. Our monthly meetings and our topics are posted there, and as we get merchandise, that'll be there as well. So you should check us out on both platforms.
And a wetsuit for women as well. Awesome.
Hey. Yes, I hope so. I hope so.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for chatting with me this morning.
Thank you so much.
So, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Addrianna, what an absolute legend, at SoCal Dive Babes on Instagram. Follow along on the journey there. There's just a bunch of awesome divers getting along and just sharing the stoke on there. It's really cool, really laid back, really enjoyed it. In 2 weeks, we are off to chat with Tom Sandstrom, and way later in the interview, Adam Stern jumps on as well. He's arriving late due to time zone confusion, but it was all good. I had a really mad chat with Tom. He's just completed his instructor's course, which is an initiative being run by the governing body here in Australia, and and basically they want to train more Spearos so that they have a good knowledge of of freediving, and so that we have less blackouts and things like that. I'd encourage you to tune into this episode. We talk about the nuts and bolts of what it's like to become a freediving instructor and the experience of it, the personalities that were involved in this course. It's really cool. Tom Sandstrom, Adam Stern. See you in 2 weeks. As usual, leave a review if you love the show. Be stoked if you become a patron listener. Go to patreon.com/noobspearo to do so. But hey, all good. Anything mentioned in today's show notes, noobspearo.com/SoCal Dive Babes. I'm out.
Are you a US-based diver? Great news! Today's show sponsor, Neptunics.com, have got a deal for you. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off anything and everything at Neptunics.com. Equipment you can rely on, solid gear that works. Even when you get all Limp Bizkit on it, you'll struggle to break stuff. Longtime sponsor, partner, and supporter of the Noob Spearo podcast, Adreno.com.au has been with us for more than 100 episodes, and I, for one, am extraordinarily grateful.
I believe there are 4 strong reasons to shop at addrianna.com.au. Number 1, price beat guarantee on any Australian spearfishing equipment price. Number 2, flat rate shipping across Australia. Number 3, hassle-free returns policy. It's super easy if you have any issues with your gear. Number 4, and probably the best of all, you can use the code NoobSpearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200 at addrianna.com.au. Now, and even now, you can use the code in-store. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, new store on the way. It's a literal no-brainer if you're a Spearo in Australia. Thanks, Addrianna.